Welcome to Living Outside the Matrix, the podcast where we explode the many modern myths of our mainstream culture. Hi there, I'm your host Nigel Howitt, and I hope you've had a fantastic holiday season as we close out December 2018. This is the last episode of the podcast, and I'd like to leave you all with a challenging thought for the end of the year about money. And this week's episode is challenging the assumption that money is the root of all evil. The issue of money affects us all. The issue of whether it's good or it's bad to have it. This notion that somehow wealth and indeed material things are bad affects us all, because these days there's a kind of a sort of a poverty consciousness, if you like. There's a degree of being ashamed of going after the money, if you like. Some people are openly ashamed of their wealth, and others can be self-righteous about being poor. But a lot of people also will deny that they're motivated by money, or they'll wear their lack of motivation for money as a social badge of honour. And many people shun material things in quite a big way as well. And all these things are tied to this fundamental assumption that money is somehow bad. And I hope to challenge your thinking about that issue as our last topic for this year. So let's just have a quick look and acknowledge that the roots of this idea come from religion, particularly the three main monotheistic religions have a common theme in that their morality is that of self-sacrifice. It's altruism, and this has a lot to do with money and material things being declared evil, and this world bad, next life good, and all that good stuff. So it tends to be what we've inherited from the religions around altruism. And there are many times in the Bible where there are references to Jesus suggesting that for wealthy people they should sell all their possessions, give away the money to the poor, and come and follow him if they want to make it to the kingdom of heaven. And there are many others in the Bible, many references, not least his outburst at the temple. But so anyway, we've all heard this, and it's rooted in what we've inherited, the morality. And this is very much a part of the whole mainstream culture, this matrix, as I refer to it. In the absence of thinking things through for ourselves, in the absence of intellectual sovereignty, psychological independence, many people tend to pick up what the group thinks, and this makes people very receptive to propaganda, as you can imagine. So what is money? Essentially, it's a means of exchange. We could talk about money a lot. There's a lot to be said around money and the various attributes it needs to have. And there's the evolution of money with the cryptocurrencies. But let's leave all of that aside for now and just consider the roots of the concept of money. And maybe that can give us some insight to decide whether it really is bad or whether perhaps it's good. We need values. We need all sorts of things in order to live, whether it's a loaf of bread to eat, or a washing machine, or a suit of new clothes, or a toothbrush, or a new home. We need things to live. We need material values specifically, and without them we would suffer. Life would be a lot harder. To not have these material values is called poverty, widely agreed to be not a good thing. So people need stuff to live, and they need something to exchange in order to get all the necessary things they haven't produced, and they need a store of value to exchange for the things that they do produce and they take to market. So this is the function of money. It facilitates the exchange of goods and services, and thus you could say makes life possible. Yes, you can barter, you might think, but really barter with the requirement for the double coincidence of wants? Barter just doesn't get trade out of the starting blocks. It really doesn't. So a means of exchange that is money, whether it be seashells, feathers, or gold coins, greatly facilitates trade. So that's what money does. So it makes life possible. That's quite a big deal. And isn't it strange, we might note, that in the light of that, and these are just facts, it's not disputable, in the light of that, isn't it strange that it's considered wrong or bad to be materialistic? This is a related issue. When I would suggest that it's 100% irrational to be anti-material things. When you think that we need material things to actually support our lives. We have material bodies, we need to support our lives. We obviously have very broad needs, not just material needs. But the whole idea of materialism, or being anti the enjoyment of material things, or anti-collecting things, is really rather at odds with the facts of reality when you think we need these things. And we have to recognize that there is a distinction to be made between people with various psychological conditions where they have a pseudo sense of self-esteem and they identify with the acquisition of things, or a certain level of wealth or status or something. But this is very much, again, a separate issue from the issue of money and things intrinsically being good or bad. So let's consider that the concept of money presupposes production. Imagine that there were no things produced, no food gathered, no cutlery made, no tables, nothing. If there was nothing, and we were back to literally what you could hunt and gather, there really is no need for money. I mean, I know it's a kind of a hypothetical thing at the moment, but if you imagine no things to exchange, there is no such need for money. If there were no men who created anything, if there were no men thinking and producing. So, if it were like that, the concept of money just wouldn't arise. So this means that the concept of money rests upon and presupposes the purposeful use of men's minds to figure out how to make things, how to produce things, how to create useful goods. So the concept of money, therefore, presupposes men thinking rationally. And it's worth pausing to note that thinking rationally is about the best thing we can do. It's the way our minds naturally work. We're a rational animal. It's the only way to gain knowledge, to be connected with reality, to know truth. It's self-evidently it's not only just our means of survival, it's our means of thriving and flourishing. So the concept of money presupposes men thinking rationally. That's worth pondering there for a moment. So also we need to make a clear distinction. This could be at the root of why a lot of people think that money is evil, or the root of all evil, or the love of money. And we have to remember that money is not responsible for what is done with it, if you like. What money is used for is a separate issue from what money is and from what money stands for. In the same way that guns and knives can be made out of metal, it's not the fault of the metal. So it's the actions chosen by men that are the real issue. The choice of what to spend your stored value on is a separate issue from the nature of the thing, the commodity that you're exchanging in order to achieve that. So, if you're whatever you're using your money for, you could be using it for good things, to send 100 friends of yours theatre tickets or something, or you could be paying mercenaries to kill people. Clearly, not a good thing to be, not a good thing, an evil action. But it's very separate from the means of payment. I think that's very important. Also, we have to remember that some men can be easily bribed or bought. It's said that every man has his price. And that may be one of the reasons why money can be considered a source of corruption. And that might be a justification for it being the root of all evil. The price paid for allegiances, it can be paid in favours or titles as well as money. And we have to remember that bribery and corruption, again, is these choices of men, these moral choices, are a separate issue from the storing of value to be used in exchange to achieve their means. There's one more reason, I think, why people might think money is evil, and that is the amount of evil that's done with the money substitute. So let's zoom out for a moment and remind ourselves that we have an imposed central banking, fiat currency, central banking, fractional reserve monetary system imposed upon us, which expropriates a lot of wealth through various means. And arguably this is anti-life and evil. But again, this is to confuse issues, because you could argue that money has been substituted for currency, or sorry, currency has been substituted for money. So what it is that's being used to do all the nasty wealth expropriation and the control is actually currency. But again, the issue of money and what it represents and where it comes from, ultimately, men's creative minds, is separate to all the shenanigans that goes on around money, and indeed the money substitute that is currency. Money enables action. It allows us to do stuff. It liberates us and makes things possible. But what it liberates and makes possible is really down to us. It's down to the choices of particular men, and that's not the job of money. So money can't really be blamed for actions performed with it. So we've mentioned the fact that most people still think that money is evil as this sort of religious morality throwback. We've got this, this inherited collective belief, this collective morality of self-sacrifice, which very much has the shunning of money as a part of it. And, you know, I've said it before in other episodes, but I do think it's a really important part of the mass cultural download. One of those core assumptions that really needs to be challenged by everyone who claims to be a thinking individual, to really look at the ethical question of, is it really a life-supporting code of values to be based in self-sacrifice? But that's getting very, very slightly off topic. As we know in our mainstream culture, you know, the shunning of things is taken to the extreme with nuns and monks, you know, and living lives without. And of course, Mother Teresa was considered or is still considered by very many a paragon of virtue in her life of self-sacrifice. But here's another thought. Money represents voluntary exchange in trade, which means it represents peace and negotiation over and above force and coercion. It represents reasoned argument, i.e., you know, a great product at a really low price, over compulsion and coercion and force. So it's important, I think, for us to bear in mind that men can deal with each other, you know, either by force or by offering each other value for value in trade, and money represents the trader principle. So it's that's another huge bonus of money, I would say. So I mean, as you won't be surprised to know that I suggest that it's worth considering for anyone, any thinking individual, the fact that money is not at all the root of all evil. In fact, money is good. Things are good. I mean, that's why we call them goods. Materialism is great. We are material beings, and enjoying the things that we need to live the best, full, happy lives, it just can't be a bad thing. It just seems a nonsense. So I would suggest, you know, think, produce, grow rich, and enjoy your wealth. It would seem tragic to me that anybody who did unwittingly plug into mainstream morality and consequently unnecessarily harbour any guilt over the pursuit of wealth, the pursuit of what they want to do, the desire to earn money. I would hope that at least, you know, we need to know that if we revisit all our presumptions and think this through, if you really took that issue and said, actually, money's not the root of evil, there's nothing wrong with money at all, at the very least what will happen is that your sense of guilt will disappear as you accept, actually, this is morally perfectly sound, the idea of exchanging goods and values and storing value in money. So if we really think about it, I think there's a potential benefit there for some people that might feel guilty about money. And, you know, I'll leave that thought with you. But my take on money is that it's a means of survival. I think it's very important to remember it's a means of survival. It's a way out of poverty, of course. But it's a means to acquire the values that we need to support our lives, whether it's the daily shopping or buying a new car or a home. So money is a tool that supports life. It's very pro-life. And whatever money is used for, if it be used for evil, it's not the money that is evil. Everybody knows, of course, that money can buy you anything you want. But what most people don't appreciate is that it can't tell you what to value. You can come into money, you can be immensely wealthy, but unless you have your own thought through code of values, your own set of priorities about what's important in your life, money cannot give you that, and it can't be a substitute for your thinking, if you like. And this is why money doesn't corrupt men. It's men who corrupt their money. Money is used to manifest the values of the owner, effectively, and we see it's not necessarily having money. If you match your money, it can serve you, but if you're not up to it and you haven't thought through your values, it could destroy you. So money cannot help you know what to value, and this is why it's also tied in with the fact that it can't buy us happiness. Happiness is an effect, of course. It's a result of realizing one's own self-initiated goals and values, setting purposes and achieving things. This is a key factor in achieving happiness. And again, money can't participate in that process because you need to arrive at your own values. So then there's the issue of, is it the love of money that's the root of all evil? But I find myself almost wondering how anybody could not love money, given a thorough analysis of what it actually is, what it enables, all the things we've discussed. When you see that it represents the best way for men to deal with each other, it represents the best of men's thinking and what they can produce. It's difficult to not love such an amazing thing that facilitates trade. I think it's a brilliant and most amazing tool, and to love something is to value it and recognize how it supports all your other values. So how could one not rationally love money? So the last little point that springs to mind is, we talk of finding a lucky penny on the ground, not a cursed penny. And I mean, if anyone were ever to find some money, I mean, would you feel blessed, or would you feel like, a load of evil had landed in your lap? If a distant relative leaves you some money in a will, if you suddenly came into a few grand, I mean, who wouldn't be pleased at the arrival of extra value such as that? So yeah, the love of money. But here's the thing, because the way you get your money does matter very much. If we assume that you want to be happy, if we assume that everybody wants to be happy, and by that I would mean living a fully human life with a sense of meaning, purpose, and in this case, how you acquire your money can be very important. If you stole it or you defrauded people to obtain money, you will know that. You will know that you're a fraud. You will know that your money doesn't match your ability. You'll every time you spend, you'll be reminded of your own inadequacies, if you like. So each spend won't be a joyful celebration of achievement. If you earn your money honourably and honestly, spending the money that you acquire, and the more of it, the better, can be, can bring great pleasure. But if you know that you're a parasite, if you know that you're a moocher, and you're just sponging off others, that affects your ability to achieve a happy life. And these things are very real, and people can pretend they're not there, and they can laugh it off, and pop another bottle of champagne and pretend everything's okay. But ultimately, happiness does elude those people doing that. So anyway, I hope this helps shed some perhaps controversial thoughts out there about money. I hope that it serves as some useful food for thought. I very much recommend watching a series by Mike Maloney called The Hidden Secrets of Money. There are 10 parts to that video series. There'll be a link to it below. And yeah, very, very fantastic resource for learning all about money and the deficit spending and the monetary system imposed on us with fiat currencies these days. A great resource. So I do wish you all the very best for 2019. I will be publishing once every 2 weeks and writing my book, Living Outside the Matrix. That has to come into fruition, so I'll be making some time for that. And subjects we'll be looking at, we'll be taking a closer look at exercise in the new year. We're going to be looking at strength training and some high intensity interval training, along with yoga stretches, for a sort of a comprehensive means to address the physical exercise requirements of health. So do urge you to visit the website. Please do, lawfulrebel.com. Loads more useful information on there. And thank you very much for listening. And I do hope you'll join me again next year and for another episode of Living Outside the Matrix.
Be the change you want to see. Be the change you want to see.